Jesus' teachings. The parable of the Rich Man and Lazarus introduction. What if I told you that you might be living like a rich person and dying like a poor one, and you haven't even realized it yet? Hold on, I'm not talking about bank accounts. I'm talking about something far more valuable, something no bank can store and no thief can steal, the legacy of your soul. The truth is that most people spend their entire lives accumulating things that will stay here when they depart, while completely ignoring what they'll actually take with them. The choices they made, the lives they touched or didn't touch. Does that sound heavy? That's because it is. But it's also liberating, because it means there's still time to change the game. Jesus told a parable that many people prefer to ignore because it makes them uncomfortable, because it exposes them, because it shows that not everyone who's doing well today will be doing well tomorrow. The story of the rich man and Lazarus isn't just a cheap moral lesson. It's an X-ray of the human soul, a flashing red alert that most choose to turn off. And you know what's most impressive? This parable was told over 2,000 years ago, but it could have been written yesterday. Because human nature has unchanged, there are still people living it up at parties while others eat crumbs. There are still people building walls when they should be building bridges. And there are still people thinking they'll have time to fix everything later until they discover that later is too late. Here's a truth no one tells you. You don't need to be rich to live like the rich man in the parable. You don't need a mansion, an imported car, or designer clothes. You just need to live only for yourself. Just ignore those around you. Just believe that your responsibility begins and ends with you. And look, I know this seems counterintuitive, because we live in a society that preaches take care of yourself first. You first, self-care above all. But Jesus Christ threw that logic in the trash when he taught through parables. He showed that whoever keeps everything for themselves ends up losing even what they have, and whoever distributes ends up receiving double. But in a currency that doesn't circulate here, it circulates in eternity. God sustained me not because I deserved it, but because he saw that I was willing to be a channel, not a reservoir. And many people are living like reservoirs. They receive, but never distribute. Until one day they dry up, because stagnant water rots. When God speaks to the heart about sharing, about extending your hand, about looking around, it's not because he wants to take something from you. It's because he wants to give you something much greater in return. Purpose, meaning, eternity. Now, prepare yourself, because what you're going to read in the next lines could completely change the way you see life. It's not an exaggeration, it's a promise. Because the teachings that Jesus embedded in this parable are like layers of an onion. Every time you peel one, you find another deeper one underneath. And most people stay only on the surface, grab the obvious message of be nice to the poor and leave. But there's much more. There's revelation about divine justice, about eternal consequences, about how each choice you make today is shaping your destiny tomorrow. There are insights about how God sees pain that you can't even imagine. He sees about how He acts in silence when you think He's forgotten about you, about how the tears God sees aren't wasted. They're seeds for a future harvest. And if you're going through a difficult time right now, if nothing seems to make sense, if you look around and see people worse than you prospering while you can barely pay the bills, this message is especially for you. Because when everything seemed lost in Lazarus's life, God was writing the greatest plot twist in history. So here's the deal. I'm going to break down this parable for you in a way no one ever has. I'll show you what Jesus really meant. I'll connect the dots that go unnoticed. I'll give you practical examples of how to apply this in your life today. Not in 10 years, not when you have more money, not when things get better. Today, now, because the uncomfortable truth is that we have no guarantee of tomorrow. The rich man in the parable didn't know he was going to die. Lazarus didn't know he was going to die. You don't know when you're going to die. And this isn't to make you paranoid, it's to wake you up. It's to make you understand that you're not alone. God is with you, but He expects you to do your part. He won't live your life for you, but He will equip you, guide you, sustain you, as long as you're willing to listen and, more importantly, to act. Because faith without action is dead, and knowledge without application is waste. So take a deep breath, open your heart, and come with me on this journey. I guarantee you won't leave here the same person who entered. The rich man and Lazarus in life, some people are so busy with their own parties that they forget to look around. It's as if life were a great luxury showcase, full of expensive clothes and endless banquets, but empty of compassion. The rich man in the story wore purple and fine linen, materials that today would be equivalent to wearing designer clothes every day, the kind that cost as much as a car. He didn't have a bad day. No. Every day was a party. Every day was a celebration. But while he was toasting inside his house, outside lay Lazarus, a man covered in sores, so weak he didn't even have the strength to chase away the dogs that licked his wounds. And the most impressive part, the rich man saw this. He passed by Lazarus every day. It wasn't ignorance, it was choice. Because when God speaks to the heart about helping someone and we ignore it, the responsibility becomes even greater. It's different from not knowing. It's knowing and pretending not to see. Now, think with me. How many times do we pass by a Lazarus and do unnotice? It doesn't have to be someone literally on the street. It could be that co-worker who's going through a difficult time. That family member who needs a word of support, or even that neighbor who never receives a visit. The truth is that we live in an era where everyone is too busy to really care. We post on social media about empathy, share beautiful quotes about loving your neighbor. But when it comes time to roll up our sleeves and actually do something, it's a different story. The rich man in the parable was a monster. He was just too comfortable in his own reality. And that's the danger. comfort can blind us. When you're not alone, God is with you, reminding us that our mission here isn't just to accumulate, but also to share. Because in the end, what we take from this life isn't designer clothes or banquets, but the marks we leave on people's hearts. Lazarus ate crumbs. Think about the humiliation of that. It wasn't even the main course, leftovers. It was the leftovers of leftovers. Those crumbs that fell from the table while the rich man delighted in fine meats, imported wines, and elaborate desserts. And even so, Lazarus didn't curse, didn't insult the rich man, didn't plan revenge. He just waited. He waited for things to change one day, for God to see his pain one day and bring justice. And oh, God did see his pain, because there's something many people don't understand. When everything seemed lost in Lazarus's life, God was preparing something greater. While the rich man thought he was on top of the world, Lazarus was being molded for something eternal. It's like that saying, all that glitters is not gold sometimes. Today's shine hides tomorrow's darkness, and today's pain prepares tomorrow's glory. And there's more. Dogs licked Lazarus's wounds. In that era's culture, this was rock bottom, the ultimate symbol of abandonment and impurity. But even in this, there's an interesting detail. The dogs, considered impure animals, showed more compassion than the rich man. They at least came close. They touched. They acknowledged Lazarus's existence. Meanwhile, the rich man kept his distance, protected by his walls of indifference. And this makes us think, don't we sometimes also build walls? Walls of busyness, of justifications, of it's not my responsibility. Faith in Jesus Christ teaches us exactly the opposite, to tear down walls and build bridges. Because in God's kingdom, there's no hierarchy of human value. It doesn't matter if you wear purple or rags. If you live in a mansion or on the street, everyone is equally loved and equally responsible for one another. And when we understand this, life, death, and the afterlife death is that inconvenient truth that everyone knows exists, but no one likes to talk about. It's funny how we live as if we were eternal, planning vacations for next year, investing in long-term plans, accumulating things that will be useful someday. But then comes the moment when none of that matters anymore. Lazarus died. Just like that. No warning, no time to make a will or emotional goodbyes. And you know what happened? He was carried by angels to Abraham's bosom, a place of eternal comfort, of peace that never ends. Meanwhile, the rich man also died because no amount of money buys one more second of life when the time comes. He was buried with all the pomp, probably a first-class funeral, imported flower wreaths, beautiful speeches about how he was generous and successful. But when God sustained me in life, it wasn't for appearances. And in eternity, appearances don't count. What counts is what you did with what you had, not how much you had. There's a huge difference between dying and departing. Lazarus departed in the arms of angels. Imagine the scene after an entire life of suffering, pain, humiliation. He finally closes his eyes, and when he opens them, he's no longer at the rich man's door, but in heaven, being carried by celestial beings. It's like winning the lottery after years of losing, only infinitely better, because it's not luck, it's divine justice. God heard your prayer, every groan, every tear, every night when Lazarus looked to the sky and asked how long. And the answer came. Now, my son, now it's your turn to rest. Meanwhile, the rich man woke up in a totally different place. No angels, no comfort, just torment. And that's when the story gets heavy, because we realize there are consequences for our choices. It's not God being cruel, it's the law of the harvest. You reap what you sow. If you planted indifference, you'll reap loneliness. If you planted selfishness, you'll reap abandonment. Now, let's be practical here. What does this part of the story teach us for today? First, that death doesn't choose social class. The rich man died. Lazarus died. No one escaped. Bill Gates will die. Elon Musk will die. The homeless person will die. You will die. I will die. The question isn't if, but when and where to. And that's where the second point comes in. Eternal destiny is defined by today's choices. It's no use going to church every Sunday, singing hymns with tears in your eyes, raising your hands during worship, if on Monday you treat people like garbage. It's no use making eloquent prayers if you don't practice compassion. It's like that guy who works out every day but eats junk. It's useless. You're not alone. God is with you today. Now, at this moment, reminding you that there's still time to change. There's still time to be the person who takes someone to heaven with you, instead of dragging them down. The interesting thing is that the text says Lazarus went to Abraham's bosom. This isn't a physical position, but an expression of intimacy, of belonging. It's like when you were a child and felt protected in your parents' lap. That feeling of, here I am safe. No one can hurt me here. Lazarus, who spent his entire life not belonging anywhere, finally found his home. The rich man, who spent his entire life surrounded by people at his parties, woke up completely alone in torment. Because there's a difference between being surrounded by people and being truly accompanied. The rich man had guests. Lazarus had angels. The rich man had flatterers. Lazarus had God. And when heaven is silent but God is acting, he prepares plot twists that no Hollywood screenwriter could imagine. He reverses roles, levels the playing field, shows that in the end the last shall be first. And this changes everything, because it means that your current condition the dialogue in the afterlife, you know that moment when it hits you and you realize you got everything wrong. Well, the rich man had that moment only too late. From hell, he lifted his eyes and saw Abraham from afar and Lazarus at his side in comfort. Imagine the scene, the guy who was at your door before, covered in sores, eating crumbs, is now in the place of honor, while you, who lived in luxury, are in a place of eternal torment. The irony is so heavy it hurts just to think about it. And then the rich man does what many would do, tries to negotiate. "Father Abraham, have mercy on me. Send Lazarus to dip the tip of his finger in water and cool my tongue, because I'm tormented in this flame." Notice the detail. Even in hell, even after everything, he still treats Lazarus as a servant. He doesn't ask Abraham to send water, he asks Abraham to send Lazarus to bring water. It's as if he's saying, "I'm still superior. He still has to serve me." Some people die and still don't learn, but God acts in silence, and sometimes the lesson comes too late to be applied. Abraham's response is a lesson in divine justice. "Son, remember that you received your good things in life, and Lazarus bad things. Now, however, he is comforted, and you are tormented." Translation: You had your chance, man. You had time, you had resources, you had the opportunity to do differently. Lazarus was literally at your door. You didn't need to look for someone to help. Opportunity knocked on your door every single day. But you chose to close your eyes, chose to cross your arms, chose to live only for yourself. And now each one is receiving what they planted. It's not cruelty, it's consequence. It's like that student who didn't study all year, got to the final exam and failed. There's no use crying to the teacher afterward because the chance to study existed and was wasted. When God speaks to the heart during life, He's giving you opportunities to change course. But if you ignore it, if you choose the path of selfishness, there comes a point when the door closes. And that's terrifying, but it's real. Now comes the part that gives chills. Abraham says there's a great chasm fixed between them, so that those who want to pass from here to there cannot, nor can those from there pass here. This chasm isn't physical, it's spiritual. It's the definitive separation between those who chose to love and those who chose to ignore, between those who lived to serve and those who lived to be served. And there's no bridge, no shortcut, no way around it. It's over. It's final. And this completely contrasts with today's mentality, where everyone thinks there will always be a second chance, that you can always fix it later, that God is so nice He'll pat everyone on the head in the end. It's not like that. God is love, yes, but He's also just. And justice means that tears God sees during life have weight, have value, have consequence. Lazarus's tears weren't in vain, they turned into eternal comfort. The rich man's parties weren't forgotten, they turned into eternal torment. Every choice counts, every action weighs, every indifference marks. Think with me, how many bridges are you burning today that you'll miss tomorrow? How many people are you ignoring who could be your salvation? Because the rich man didn't go to hell just because he was rich. There are rich people in heaven too. He went because he used his wealth only for himself, because he built walls instead of bridges, because he accumulated instead of distributing. It's like that guy who wins the lottery and, instead of helping his family, disappears and goes to spend it all alone. In the end, he's alone. And eternal loneliness is hell. You're not alone. God is with you now, showing you that there's still time to build bridges, to look around, to extend your hand, because when it's time for the reckoning, it won't help to argue, but I didn't know, because you know you're finding out now. The question is, what are you going to do with this information? Will you keep it to yourself, or will you let it transform you? Because the chasm is built brick by brick, choice by choice, and when you least expect it. The final request and the response when we lose everything, the first thing that comes to mind is trying to save those who can still be saved. The rich man, even in torment, had one last flicker of compassion, only now directed toward his family. Then, Father Abraham, I beg you to send him to my father's house, because I have 5 brothers. Let him warn them, so they don't also come to this place of torment. Look at the transformation. The guy who never cared about Lazarus in life now wants him to be a messenger to his brothers. It's funny how suffering opens your eyes, right? Suddenly, empathy appears. Suddenly, he cares about others. But there's an important detail here. He doesn't ask for forgiveness. Doesn't show genuine remorse for what he did to Lazarus. He just wants to prevent his family from going through the same thing. It's like that criminal who only repents when caught, not when committing the crime. And this teaches us something profound. God saw your pain doesn't mean he'll change the rules of the game in the middle of the match. It means he sees, records, and acts according to his perfect justice. Abraham's response is direct and devastating. They have Moses and the prophets. Let them listen to them. Translating to our context, they have the Bible. They have the teachings, they have churches, they have testimonies, they have everything they need to make the right decision. There's no lack of information, there's a lack of willingness. It's like that guy who has a free gym at work but never goes. Or that person who has access to free online courses but spends the day watching silly videos. It's not a lack of resources, it's a lack of priority. The rich man's brothers had access to God's word, which means they knew what was right. They knew they needed to help the poor. They knew they needed to live with compassion. They knew life wasn't just about accumulating. But knowing and doing are 2 completely different things. When God heard your prayer, often the answer was already available, you just didn't want to see it. It's like praying for direction while ignoring the giant sign in front of you, pointing the way. God doesn't need to perform supernatural miracles when He's already given you everything you need naturally. But the rich man insists, no, Father Abraham. But if someone from the dead went to them, they would repent. Here's the thinking that many people have, even today. Oh, if God performed a miracle in front of me, then I would believe. If I saw a dead person resurrected, then I would change my life. Lie. Big lie. Because Jesus himself resurrected, and to this day there are people who don't believe. There were people who saw Jesus resurrect Lazarus, not this Lazarus from the parable, but another Lazarus, Jesus' friend. and still didn't believe. On the contrary, they planned to kill Jesus. So the problem was never lack of evidence. The problem was always hardness of heart. When everything seemed lost, when all the signs were there, still many chose unbelief. Because deep down, really deep down, it's not about seeing to believe. It's about wanting to believe. You can put all the miracles in the world in front of someone who doesn't want to change, and that person will find an excuse, will rationalize, will say it was coincidence or a trick. A closed heart doesn't open even with celestial dynamite. And then comes the final phrase, the one that closes everything and leaves no room for doubt. If they don't listen to Moses and the prophets, they won't be persuaded even if someone rises from the dead. Mic drop. End of discussion. Abraham is saying, look, son, the problem isn't lack of proof, it's excess of pride. Your brothers have everything they need. If they don't want to listen, a ghost won't solve it. And this applies directly to us today. How many times do we ask for signs, ask for confirmations, ask God to write in the sky, but ignore what He's already written in the Bible? How many times do we want an audible voice from God, but don't read the word He's already left? It's like asking the teacher to explain the subject to you personally when the complete textbook is in your backpack, but you never opened it. Faith in Jesus Christ doesn't require you to see everything. It requires you to trust in what has already been revealed. It requires you to act based on what you already know, not to keep waiting for a celestial light show. Because in the end, heaven is silent, but God is acting through His word, through the people around you, through life's circumstances. And if you don't see this now, you won't see it, even if conclusion. So we reached the end of this journey through the parable of the rich man and Lazarus. But actually, this isn't an end, it's a beginning. Because what good is it if you've absorbed all of this, felt your heart squeeze, agreed with your head, if tomorrow you wake up and continue living the same way? What good is recognizing the rich man's mistakes if you make the same mistakes every day? Look, I'll be direct with you. Knowledge that doesn't become action is just entertainment. And life isn't a movie where you just watch, you're the protagonist, and each day is a new scene you're writing. The question that won't go away is, what story are you telling? When you reach your last chapter, when the curtain closes, what will be the legacy? Will you be remembered as someone who accumulated or as someone who distributed, as someone who built walls or bridges, as someone who ignored or who extended their hand? Think with me now with total honesty. Who is your Lazarus? Who is that person at your door, literally or figuratively, needing something you can offer and you've been pretending not to see it? It could be that relative you cut ties with and never called again. It could be that friend who's going through depression and you disappeared because you don't know what to say. It could be that coworker who's overloaded and you never offered help. It could even be yourself, because sometimes we are our own Lazarus, covered in emotional wounds, eating the crumbs of self-esteem. And we need to allow God to take us into His lap. So here's the challenge. Today, now, not tomorrow, not next week. Today, you're going to do one concrete thing. You're going to send that message. You're going to make that call. You're going to apologize. You're going to offer help. You're going to look someone in the eye and ask, how are you really doing it? Because when God speaks to the heart, the right answer is never later. The right answer is yes now. And don't come to me with the excuse of, but I don't have money to help anyone. Lazarus didn't need millions. He needed crumbs and didn't even get that. Sometimes what someone needs isn't money. It's time. It's attention. It's presence. It's a hug. It's a word. It's you stopping scrolling through Instagram for 5 minutes and really listening to someone. Do you know how many lives could be saved if we spent half the time we spend on social media taking care of real people? Do you know how many Lazaruses could be comforted if we stopped photographing food and started sharing food? I'm not saying you need to sell everything and become a missionary, although if God calls you to that, don't ignore it. I'm saying you need to wake up to the reality that your choices have eternal weight, that every time you choose compassion instead of indifference, you're building treasure in heaven. That every time you see someone's pain and act, God sees your pain too and rewards you in ways you can't even imagine. Now, answer me something. What's stopping you from changing? Seriously, think about it. What's holding you back? Is it fear? Is it pride? Is it laziness? Is it the feeling that everyone does this? Why should I be different? Because I'll tell you a secret. You're not alone. God is with you, but He won't do for you what you need to do. He won't take your hand and force you to help someone. He won't make your decisions. He gave you free will precisely so that your choices have value. And look, I know changing hurts. I know leaving your comfort zone is scary. I know it's easier to continue in inertia. But you want to know what hurts more. It's getting to the end and realizing you wasted your entire life. It's having to hear you had Moses and the prophets, you had the Bible, you had the teachings, you had the opportunities, you had the warnings, and you ignored everything. It's discovering that the chasm separating you from happy eternity was built brick by your own choices. Don't let that happen. Don't be the rich man who wakes up too late. And look, I need to tell you one more thing. This message here, it wasn't an accident. It wasn't a coincidence. God heard your prayer. He saw you there on the other side of the screen, carrying a weight no one sees, fighting battles no one knows about. And He wanted you to hear this today because there's still time. There's still time to fix, to start over, to change course. Because when everything seemed lost, when you thought there was no way out, God was preparing this moment. This exact moment when you understand that life isn't about you. It's about what you do for others. It's about how you reflect God's love in a world that's getting colder and colder. It's about you being light where there's darkness, hope where there's despair, a bridge where there's a chasm. And this isn't a burden, it's a privilege. It's the greatest honor you can have, to be used by God to transform lives. So stop procrastinating, stop making empty promises. Stop waiting for the perfect moment, because the perfect moment is now. Get up, shake off the dust, and go. Go love, go serve, go help, go live with purpose. Because God acts in silence, but He acts through you when you're willing. And if this message touched your heart, if you felt you need to learn more about how to live Jesus' teachings in practice, then subscribe to the channel and activate the notification bell. Because every week I bring content like this: deep, transformative, practical content that doesn't just serve to make you feel good for 5 minutes, but to literally change the trajectory of your life. And look, I know there are millions of channels out there, millions of options, millions of distractions. But I guarantee you, if you want to grow spiritually, if you want to understand the Bible in a way that makes real sense, if you want to apply faith in Jesus Christ in your daily life and see real results, you're in the right place. So don't miss the next videos. Don't leave this transformation half done, because heaven is silent, but God is acting, and He wants to use you in ways you can't even imagine yet. You just have to say yes. You just have to take the first step. And that first step could simply be pressing that red button down there and continuing this journey with me. What are you waiting for? Let's go together.